So how's everything working out? I saw the initial drawings you sent to Chris. It looks good.
Working from home
The guy in the red hat in your image here.
is the last thing David Borax imagined he'd be doing.
Yeah, that's just one point effect.
David is a reporter for WFAE, a public radio station in Charlotte, and as the pandemic began to get worse, it was all he was covering.
To hear these stories one after the other, it's difficult, and you realize that this is a serious illness that we all need to take seriously.
Stories of the homeless in Charlotte are what David spent a lot of time covering for work.
A lot of these people have been kicked out of where they are, or they have moved from other encampments into this situation, and they're waiting for help. And some of them are the kind of people that you meet them and you wonder, why are they homeless?
David did an interview with one of the homeless people. Her name is
Chris Taylor is a digital artist in Charlotte, and until recently, he and David had never met.
So this is actually the page number 4 I was working on.
Now, the two are working together to create a chapter for a comic book series called The Pandemic.
I learned a lot more about the homeless situation, so that's what our chapter is about. It's about how COVID has affected the homeless situation in Charlotte. So I've learned a ton more about what they're going through.
Chris and David are just a handful of artists and journalists working together on this comic book put together by a nonprofit called Boom Charlotte and the Charlotte Journalism Collaborative. Every 2 weeks, they release a new chapter which shares the stories of how the pandemic has impacted people in the city.
It's kind of hard to see the effects firsthand if you're not experiencing it, but there are a lot of people who are like dealing with COVID, like that has hit them really heavy. So it gives a different perspective if you're not seeing it firsthand.
Chris works to draw out this chapter,
When do you think you'll have that?
while David provides his material and insight to help this story come to life.
This is interesting to work with an artist because this gets us access to a whole different audience. I mean, there are people who are going to read this in a graphic form that might not listen to the radio. They might not read a newspaper. And so these stories are being told in a way that gives us access to a whole new audience. I like the images.
The pandemic has changed a lot of things.
Page 5, those are more like flashback scenes.
But David and Chris hope this comic book will help people better understand that change and those it impacts.
I think it has lots of possibilities, and I'd love to see us continue it in other avenues, in other news topics, because I think that it tells a story in a way that, like I said before, you can't tell it any other way.
All right, thank you, David, as always.
Yep, cheers.
Have a great day.
Yep.